Back here for Tape Don't Lie with Max Browne. And Max, Notre Dame's trying to avoid a replay of 2012's BCS championship game. And I think it starts defensively with their athleticism on the front. Let's get to the tape. Ade Ogundeji, I think he's someone who's going to have an impact on this game, right?
Yeah, when you watch the film, 91's a guy that screams off the tape. And what screams off the tape right here is if you can get pressure with three, that's a foundational piece for having a lot of success on defense, especially on third down when you're not relying on exotic blitz packages. And that's what Notre Dame is long, physical defensive linemen. They've been that way the entire era under Brian Kelly.
So I put this one on here because I wanted to get your take on it from the offensive side. When a defensive lineman can do this, like what's going through your mind?
That you're in for a long night. When you can engage the left guard, shed the block, and then run sideline to sideline, that means you're doing something right. And it just shows the athleticism right there. They're going to need to do that. They obviously know who they're facing in Najee Harris this upcoming matchup. But impressive right there, and kind of shows you that, hey, Notre Dame, you might not think of them as overly athletic relative to Ohio State's and those types of teams, but they definitely have some dudes in their roster.
Yeah, I want to point out another dude, Bo Bauer here, where he expands to cover the running back and then gets back in to shut down Sam Howell on the hoof on third down.
And this is the risk you run when you start running defensive line games in these situations. You can have some empty gaps if you make a guy miss. Credit Howell for getting out, and that'll be something to follow is does the dual threat element or quarterback mobility play a role at all in this ball game?
And I listen, as a former safety, I got to spotlight my guy, Kyle Hamilton here. He is at his best coming down into the box. He sits sticks, goes to the hole, and then he makes a tackle.
And I love this coverage. I mean, it took me a sec to realize what was going on here. I mean, it's a cover three shell, but they're moving safeties around, and they get to it in a very unique way. And that's one thing Notre Dame's always been able to do is they have high IQ football players that can do different coverages. And if they come into the park with the right game plan and the right flavor of that week defensively, I mean, throw all the previous games out the window. They can definitely maybe confuse Mac Jones. And obviously he's a guy that's played very well. But if you change up the picture on him, that can certainly be a recipe for success.
Yeah, I think that the confusion was key that you hit on. And then let's get to this, right? What are their weapons? And I don't think they have an explosive over-the-top weapon, but look at this route from Michael Mayer. They've got intermediate weapons that can really mess up the interior of your defense.
Without a doubt, Michael Mayer getting it done right there, a little out and up. And this is nothing new, right? We're used to the ND tight ends getting it done, but those are the type of matchups that if you're Notre Dame, I mean, can you get in some unique formations, some three tight end sets, just different looks that maybe this Bama defense isn't necessarily used to?
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. And then we get into the improv, right? And listen, this is improv, this is book, Mayor, but it's still a first down. And I wonder how this element works against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you like to think he's playing with fire if he brings us out against the Crimson Tide, but I like the Brett Favre-esque little shovel pass, whatever it takes to get done. But I mean, that's kind of Ian Book's game a little bit, right? He's maybe a little underrated as a pocket passer, maybe a little underrated with his legs, but a lot of this is gonna fall on 12's shoulder for sure.
Well, that's the thing. That's the reason this one's on the tape, right? Like he's gonna have to do this. What do you think his run game is gonna have to do to force Alabama's hand in coverage?
Yeah, plays like this, right? Third down. I mentioned it before. When they start bringing in defensive line stunts and linemen start moving, that leaves holes open to attack, and Ian Book can make you pay with that. And then this, to me, is kind of the key in the game right here is if Notre Dame can establish a run game. It feels like that's always the theme against Alabama is if you can't run the ball and that's just a lost cause, you're in for a long night. Not saying they have to put up 200 yards on the ground, but that it has to be at least a threat with a Notre Dame offensive line that's certainly very experienced.
So ultimately, we get to this game. It's Bama, it's Notre Dame, and everyone's going to talk about the 2012 game and that whole situation. But the reality is, do you think Notre Dame can establish the run? Do you think they have any chance of controlling the line of scrimmage either way? And what can they do to pull off an upset? Really would be the upset of upsets in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm doubtful that they can control either line of the scrimmage. My biggest thing is, can they do enough to at least not get one dimensional? And then Ian Book's got to have the game. It's got to be on him. They got to be able to mix it up. You're going to have to see 12 get involved with his legs, his arm, and in the pocket passing. That's got to be going. And you have to have enough of a run attack to at least keep them honest. If Alabama's able to pin their ears back and they get the momentum and they're filling gaps every run play, Notre Dame's in some trouble.
And real quick, I want to get the last thing because we forget we think about this in terms of 2012, but Alabama's a different team too. Do you think Notre Dame can stop how explosive they are?
That is the question. My old offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, he's doing some good things. I don't. I mean, this Alabama team's absolutely loaded. We've talked about Devontae Smith at receiver, Najee Harris. That to me is maybe the beast that we can put on some North Carolina tape and some speedsters and whatnot. But to me, Najee Harris puts him over the hump, and that's too much of a beast to stop.